Welcome to the Events Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Taylor, and each week I talk with event professionals about how they plan, promote, and run their events. We help you build your events empire by growing your business around live events. Whether you're running small meetups or conferences, trade shows, and concerts, we focus on finding actionable tips that you can use straight away. This podcast is sponsored by EventsFrame. Check it out over at eventsframe.com. Make the switch from Eventbrite today to our amazing ticketing and registration system with no ticket fees. It integrates with all the major payment gateways such as Stripe, PayPal, and Braintree. And we also have the best email integrations out there, including MailChimp, Zapier, Infusionsoft, Aweber, Drip, and many, many more. You can use our versatile website builder or embed tickets directly in your own site. We've got thousands of live events on EventsFrame, ranging from small community meetups to large trade shows and conferences. EventsFrame is especially good for anyone wanting to run multiple events, as you can host an unlimited number of events on your EventsFrame account. Most ticketing systems charge you a minimum of 3% of the ticket price, but we just have a flat, low fee with no ticket fees and no restrictions. There's genuinely no system out there that is cheaper than EventsFrame. So head on over to eventsframe.com for a free 1-month trial. And we also have a special offer just for podcast listeners. Email me at dan@eventsframe.com, dan@eventsframe.com, with the subject line podcast, and I'll send you a special discount code. So that's all. Let's get on to the interview. Today, I'm delighted to welcome back for his second appearance, a very popular first appearance. It's Will Kunhardt from the Lost Estate. How are you doing, Will?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, Dan. How are you doing?
Really, really good. So basically, if people haven't listened to the first interview, I'm going to put a link here in the show notes. It was a really interesting chat with Will, who was a classical music conductor who then started putting on his own events to get himself hired, and then started organizing some immersive experiences through his company, The Lost Estate. And when we left Will at the end of the last interview, he was just about to put on a secret dining experience in London called the Great Christmas Feast, based around Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. And it was really interesting because Will and me haven't actually spoken. So for me, it's great to find out from the beginning about how it all went, because it was quite an ambitious undertaking. So if it's okay with you, Will, we'll get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away.
Cool. So why don't you start? How did it go with the planning? I think the last time I spoke to you, it was at least a month out from you running it. Like how did it start off with the run up to the event? And maybe if you could just give everyone a quick recap of what it is for people who haven't listened to the first episode. What was the event?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the Great Christmas Feast was essentially the story of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. The setting was Charles Dickens' study in Victorian London.
Yeah.
And what it was an immersive theatre, music and dining experience at a secret location hidden in the centre of London that people came to, and they got basically everything. So they got the story of a Christmas Carol as told by Charles Dickens himself, set in his own study, and with a 4-course fine dining menu woven through the entire experience. And that was all created by Natalie Coleman, who was the winner of MasterChef here in the UK in 2012. So it's a kind of so what the Lost Estate does is, beyond trying to create amazing kind of storytelling, theatrical experiences, is we try and create complete nights out. So in one location, an amazing bar, amazing food, and an amazing show of some description, and a brilliant location, a brilliant atmosphere, brilliant place to socialize in as well. So we try and basically put together all the key components of an amazing night out in one single place for people, because that's often what we find is the frustration. That's one of the reasons we started the company, is the frustration that lots of things give you one part of a great night out, but very few things give you everything you need in one place.
Especially in London,
that was a great.
Yeah, I was saying, especially in London, where getting from anywhere to anywhere else is always just a horrible nightmare, generally speaking.
Yeah, it can be as well. But I think particularly that's often why. So my big passion, like you touched on, is the fine arts. Is obviously principally orchestral music. Like you said, I'm an orchestral conductor. director by training. So my big passion is the fine arts. And I found a lot of people, the reason why a lot of people don't go to the fine arts in terms of why they don't buy tickets for fine art events is not because they don't think that the fine arts are completely amazing. I think almost all of us, when we see like an opera singer or a great musician or a dancer or whatever, we're completely bowled over by the talent and this sort of emotional impact. But it's just a really sort of slightly one-dimensional night out. If we're looking at the night as a whole, it's a really rich experience in itself, but there's no dinner, there's no time to talk to your friends, all these kind of really simple, they might sound quite facile and quite basic things, but actually they're what matter to people. We've got very limited free time, and what matters to us is like the people that we care about and things like that. So however wonderful an experience might be, if it's not going to give us that human connection with the people that matter most to us, it's not going to be something we want to do. So so that's kind of what we try and do.
Interesting side point. It's like, I remember like when I lived in London, sometimes you'd have like a theatre menu, like some restaurant you could go to earlier. But it's like, I wonder why, like, say, for example, opera companies, why they don't like arrange like deals with some restaurants and somewhere to go afterwards to make more like a whole night out where you can, as well as buying the ticket, you can do this. I mean, I guess they're just not set up to do that kind of experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. So like places like the Royal Opera House have in-house restaurants and things like that. I also think it's that it's actually all about timings and stuff like that. So I think that's what makes it incredibly awkward. So if let's say a concert, which it usually is in London, is 7:30 till 9:30, when are you going to eat in there at a time that's convenient to you?
Yeah, it's either too early or too late, isn't it?
Yeah, it's either going to be early in a big rush, and then the eating is not going to be a social thing, or you're going to have to sit there starving till 9:30, and then eat, and that's a bit late, so you're probably just going to rush it then too, and not. It sounds really simple, and it sounds really basic. It sounds like it shouldn't be a problem, but that is like how it works, and it is a problem. So I think that's the thing, is that even when places do offer that, because it's not an integrated experience, because not every aspect is like sensitive to the other aspects, it doesn't work out the way you might hope it would. Definitely.
So Will, let's get back to the story. So it's December. You've planned this Great London Feast. Great Christmas Feast, sorry. How you organised it, from what I understand, is you kind of had one event a day, and it ran for, I think, almost a month, like every day, basically, from before till after Christmas.
Yeah, so it was from December. Oh my goodness, was it December the 5th? I think something like that.
I think
December
so, yeah.
the 5th till January the 3rd, Tuesday till Sunday, every night. So it was quite intimate. So it was 90 guests a night, guests a night, so quite intimate, but yeah, so it just ran every single night, Tuesday till Sunday. And in terms of how we organize it, so we just have kind of four separate teams, I guess, working on every show. So we have a kitchen team, so we have to install a whole kitchen, which was quite hilarious this time, because we were on the upper floor. We had this amazing old warehouse with a huge wooden garret top floor, so exposed brick walls, and then these big beamed vaulted beam ceiling, and old wooden beamed floors, kind of amazing for the Victorian context. But the very narrow staircase. So we discovered on our first get-in day that the new freezer that we've got and the new industrial oven that we've got didn't fit up the stairs. So we ended up having to crane them in, which was hilarious. I mean, one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen in my life.
Did you buy all this kitchen equipment, or you rented it? Like, how did you organize all this?
Rent.
Right.
Rent. Oh, actually, kind of, we have a really good working relationship with Natalie. So actually, I think we're really lucky in that regard, in that she spends a lot of the money she makes with us investing in new equipment. So that was her equipment.
That's cool.
And we kind of, like I said, we have this sort of unwritten agreement or trust that we're each going to support each other as businesses, and therefore we're each going to invest in the other, if that makes sense. So she so she came with that equipment as part of her setup. But yeah, that was like the big mistake we made. We completely miscalculated that. So sort of like 11:30 at night, we snuck this crane in. I'm not sure if we were allowed to, but we snuck this huge industrial crane just down Tower Bridge and into the road that we were on, and we craned a half-ton freezer into a second-story warehouse.
Wow,
which was quite something, through an open window.
So how long was the setup? Like, how long before the first day were you setting everything up?
So literally did it all in 4 days. So It's very manic and it's just very fast, all in 4 days. Yeah, sorry, I got carried away remembering the flying freezer. But so yeah.
No, that's cool. That's a great story. Like that's the best thing about the podcast is the stories. You know?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So we have the kitchen team, we have the design and build team. So they build the bar, they build the set, install the lighting, all of that stuff, and the sound as well. So we have that kind of theatre crew team. Then we have our front of house team. So we have the team that are going to run the room and run the connection between the pass and the diners, and also run the bar. And then we have our kind of theatre team. So we have the team that are the people kind of pulling each night and running and directing the performance. So we kind of have 4 separate but connected teams running the entire show.
Wow. So how did it go on the first night? Because that's usually the time when, you find that people couldn't find the venue or something. There's always some amusing things that go wrong. How did it all go when you kicked it off?
Well, you know what I think I mentioned this in the first podcast that what we were really looking forward to was the fact that this was a lot smaller than the Great Mouse Ball, which was the Swan Lake experience that we'd done before, where we're having like 300 people a night in, huge cast, full orchestra as well. It was insane. So actually it was really, I don't know if this is just because of the kind of comparative nature of what had come before, but it was actually very smooth from day one. From day one, it was super smooth. I mean, the timings, I think that show lasted half an hour longer than it was supposed to. I think the first 2 nights lasted half an hour longer than they were supposed to, but that was really the only sort of effect. I don't know if any diners would have noticed that was happening. Specifically, it just happened to be running longer than we wanted it to be running. But apart from that, everything ran really smoothly.
Cool. So sorry, Will, carry on.
No. That was it. What were you going to say?
No. I was going to say. So, what was what was kind of the experience for the attendees' point of view? Because I'm kind of fascinated by these immersive experiences. Because to be honest, this was all new to me. This whole world when we spoke last time. So what happened? Like they came and they were told to look for. I think it was look for the sign of the wreath, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, which I think people really enjoyed. So it's just an unmarked door with a wreath that had sort of lights inside the wreath so you could really see it. And it's just on a sort of residential/industrial, so officey, not industrial is the wrong word, kind of officey/residential street just down by Tower Bridge. So literally 2 minutes from Tower Bridge. Nailed to the wall was this wreath, glowing wreath. Wow. And then there's just this unmarked door beside it, and you just push the door and you'll find a staircase with these lanterns leading up the staircase, and you just follow it up and see what happens, really. So we had a good lot of people coming in Victorian dress. I think a lot of people love steampunk, don't they? So we have quite a big steampunk contingent in because of that sort of link with Victorian Britain. So lots of people coming in fancy dress and stuff like that. Lots of people coming dressed up sort of just for an evening out, which was great. So everyone really went for it. And then so then you work your way up to the top of this building. And I mean, we approach, I mean, the first thing is we don't actually use the word immersive anymore to describe our work, just because I think it's for some reason in London, where it's such a big trend, everyone has a really clear idea of what they think that should mean, and it's really difficult like fitting in with everyone's expectations of what that word means. So for some people, a lot of people in fact, that word means multiple rooms, which is obviously a great kind of experience to make, but for us it's probably not the kind of experience we want to make, because the two things are we want to do really, really fine food. And if people are moving from room to room to room, it's quite hard for a kitchen to kind of keep up and deliver really, really great food to those people if they're moving room to room. Yeah. And so I think that's something we're passionate about delivering. And also because we're passionate about delivering, our big USP is obviously the music, the fact that we're coming from this as really high-end classical musicians, the fact that we have that performing pedigree and that ability as musicians, that's a huge part of our experience experience. And again, if you've got a really, whether it's a great sort of chamber group or jazz band, as it's going to be for our next show, or full orchestra, I mean, you don't want them running around because, again, it's going to take down the quality of music that you're able to get. So we tend to stick with a smaller number of rooms, but it's very much that you walk into the world of the experience you're going to. So it's not like you're sat at some tables and then on the other side of the room is an area that looks like Charles Dickens' study. You're inside Charles Dickens' study, and we work very hard to make it feel totally organic and totally natural that there should be an audience inside Charles Dickens' study, which obviously there shouldn't be. But we work really hard to weave the audience into the experience in whatever way we can, whether that's actually giving them roles. So, like, obviously this is a very intimate one-man show. You just had Charles Dickens, and the concept was it was Christmas Eve, and he's finishing the final draft of A Christmas Carol ready for the publishers in the morning. So in that regard, there was no role for the audience. They were kind of the silent onlookers, but quite often we give audience members roles in a very general sense, like whether they're part of an angry mob or something like that, or whether they're, as in the Swan Lake one, they were royal guests at Prince Siegfried's, not coronation, what's the word I'm looking for? Engagement ball. Right. That's the story of Swan Lake. So he's having a big ball to find a wife, and they were the guests and potential suitors as well at this ball. So yeah, that's how we kind of try and involve the audience, and then I think we're quite open as to what we do. So if you'd gone to the Great Masked Ball, which was this huge, like I said, 300 person a night, quite sort of decadent, quite out there, quite sort of risque experience, which had a whole ballet in it and an orchestra in it, and there was all this kind of stuff. And then you go to this quite refined, quite intimate, very intimate one-man show, which was the Great Christmas Feast. I mean, there's a huge contrast between them. I think the consistent things are that we want to just provide people, we just want to tell people an amazing story in a way that makes them feel part of the story. And again, that we just wanted to do that. We just want to take all our favorite art forms and just fuse them into one. So that's what we're trying to do. That's cool. I'm just fascinated by just the logistical exercise of this. Like, how did you cope with people leaving early and things like that? I should talk you through. Yeah, shouldn't I? I should talk you through how it. Yeah, it'd be great. So basically, we did it really simply. So it kind of just went because you've got 5 parts to Christmas Carol: the kind of introduction, the 3 spirits, the 3 visitations, and then the finale where Scrooge comes good. We just did action course. So when I say course, I mean food. Yep. Plate of food. So it's 4 courses and 5 scenes, and actually we wove the final scene with the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, and then the finale where Scrooge is transformed. We did that in one go. So we got 4 staves of acting and 4 courses, and they literally just weave between the 2. And we tried to, because the Christmas Carol is so full of foodie quotes and drinks. It's even got like cocktails in there, like a smoking bishop is something that they drank in Victorian England, and at the very end, Bob Cratchit and Scrooge go for a bowl of smoking bishop, which is basically like a really lovely mulled wine, spiced wine, hot wine. So for example, we were serving smoking bishop at the bar. But yeah, going back to the food, we just tried to find the quotes that were in the food, in the story, and create dishes out of them. Cool. So this one being the end of the 3rd bit of drama is this amazing, it's this really heartwarming scene where the Cratchits are all gathered around this tiny amount of food for their Christmas dinner, but like to them it's the greatest feast since time began, and it's this incredible experience of joy, but then also this very touching thing because they have so little but they appreciate it so much. Then just as Tiny Tim says, "God bless us one and all," to begin their feast, out come charging all these plates piled high with like a whole pheasant and potatoes, and basically like the Cratchit's feast comes out. Having you just been inside this scene of Cratchit's feast, you know, the actual Cratchit's feast comes barreling out of the kitchen. Cool. and you eat it. And I mean, even to the point that they're so meshed that actually Charles Dickens himself carves the first table's pheasant as he's talking about the story. So the first table out actually eats pheasant that has been carved by Charles Dickens.
Right, that's cool.
So that's pretty cool. And then again, I think a lot of immersive experiences, they really go heavy on interaction between the guest and the performers. And again, that's not something that we don't do. There is a level of interaction, but I think for us it's quite light touch, because I think what we really have to offer is, like I said, incredible high-end music, really high-end actors and acting, and this very high level of staged performance, basically. And to a degree, you can't do sort of free-flowing interaction and also give a staged performance. So I suppose we do try and bring people into it. So for example, there's that. I mean, people will know it if they've seen like Muppets Christmas Carol, or I mean, if they know the original anyway. But it's also a scene in Muppets Christmas Carol as well, which is probably the thing most people remember, where Scrooge and his girlfriend Belle break up, and Scrooge just keeps putting it off because he's so worried about his finances and so obsessed with business, and eventually she breaks it off with him and says, you're a changed man, you're not the man I fell in love with. And so because we've just got this one man show, we actually bring someone up as part of the monologue to be Belle in that scene.
Wow. Okay.
And we have someone be Mrs. Cratchit and stab the bird in the scene. So we do interactive things, but I think a lot of immersive experiences, they're quite light on performed script and heavy on ad-libbed improvisation, and so which is absolutely brilliant, obviously, but it's quite different to what we do. So I suppose the way we describe it is. Yeah, go on.
You know what I was thinking, just as you're talking, like about how many of these experiences are in London. I wonder why, like, for example, I live in Prague, and I wonder why people aren't doing this kind of thing here in kind of, cities that aren't as big as London, for example, because there's almost nothing like that here, and there's a lot of, increasingly wealthy people and stuff. And that, like, for example, I'm surprised you or someone else hasn't taken this kind of thing on the road, done it in London, and then said, why don't we just do, Prague, Warsaw, or whatever, a bunch of these other cities? Because really, like, it's surprising how you talk about it in London, how it's like really common, and it really isn't here at all. I'm sure there'd be a huge demand for it.
Yeah, I suppose it'll be that person that takes that big leap, because you are going to need to run it for like 6-8 weeks minimum to sort of make any kind of return. So as in it's quite a hard thing to test. I suppose that's probably the thing, is it's quite hard, because I completely agree with your hypothesis. I'm sure there's like a ton of cities around the world that would love this, but you've basically got to take a wholesale leap at it. As in, you can't sort of test it.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's not something you could just run for a week. It just wouldn't be economical. You've got to run this for like a long period.
So I mean, something that we are we are moving our work internationally. Yeah, I mean, we are starting with huge cities where we know there'll be a demand. So we're talking about things like Shanghai or Hong Kong or Singapore in the Far East, and then major American cities.
Cool. So
I suppose probably, I mean, again.
No, carry on. Well, I think that there's a delay. There's a slight delay here. So sorry, I'm not meaning to talk over you. So carry on, please.
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, it's something to do. Yeah, it's my fault. There's something funny about my internet connection today, which has been army all day. But that would probably be how I would do it. Is we would go to these cities that are kind of no-brainers, like a Los Angeles or a Singapore or something like that, and then I would probably kind of build inwards to cities that are maybe, again, like you said, probably big European cities. There are no more or less risky than London or New York or whatever. But yeah. I suppose it's just that unknown factor versus the level of investment and the level of commitment you have to make towards it.
Definitely. So to finish off the Great Christmas Feast, like how did it go? Like in terms of your involvement, did you have to go there every day, or were you going every few days? Like, did it kind of run itself? I'm curious how it all went.
Yeah, that was one of the most exciting things actually from a back end point of view. Is that, well, first of all, it's in terms of feedback, it's our highest rated show ever. So that was really exciting. So because I mean, I kind of look on things as making mistakes is okay, but making mistakes twice is not okay. So I almost don't mind what level of criticism we come in for, as long as the next time we do something, we've eradicated like at least 75% of those criticisms. So it's great to see that we've done 3 shows in a row in the last year, and each one has been higher rated than the last. I mean, this one for the show element, the average feedback score is something like 9.5 out of 10. So that was really exciting. I mean, I think like the restaurant side of it, which is where we're the least experienced, because that's the bit we're newest to. We are performers by trade, so we should know how to put on a good show. The restaurant, it's not, I mean, when I say like it needs work, I think the feedback score came in at an average of 8 out of 10 or something like that for the food, but that we're still learning learning how to do that brilliantly.
That's great.
So I would say that it's good, it's definitely good food, but we want it to be exceptional food. So that's probably the big focus for 2019, is to drag that up so that it's that kind of 9.5 level, along with the acting and the show and the music and that kind of element. So yeah, but the really exciting thing is, yeah, absolutely, after 2 weeks the show ran itself entirely. So I would dip back in just to make sure everything was still at the kind of standards that we'd left it at. But actually, we spent most of December working on 2019, which is quite exciting, because I know that our last 2 shows absolutely would not have worked in that way. Like, we definitely couldn't have all 3. So there's 3 of us. There's myself, my 2 co-founders, Eddie and Rowan. There's definitely no way that either of our last 2 shows could have run without any of the 3 of us, and all 3 of us were, for the Christmas holidays, we're in completely the wrong city, and we still had the show running every single night. Fantastic.
So that's a great segue into what's next, because you mentioned that you're looking to do more events and maybe even kind of run events for other people. So what's the plans for the next stage in your growth?
Yeah, so 2 things. So we're really excited to be launching. Actually, we literally launched it this week. People can go and check out lostlovespeakeasy.com. So we are creating a sort of jazz age 1920s speakeasy experience called the Lost Love Speakeasy. So it's all based around the music of George Gershwin and that whole just amazing roaring 20s Manhattan world, which is just going to be super, super fun to do. We've got brilliant jazz bands. We're writing an amazing script for the experience. And we've got brilliant script writer, Juliet. She's had like plays premiered by Royal Shakespeare Company and stuff like that. And then we're working with, I'm really excited about this, we're working with Neil Rankin. So anyone that's like a sort of into their food and based in London is probably going to know Neil Rankin. He's the head chef at Temper, and Temper is like an open fire restaurant. So they cook everything on open flame. They've got an amazing flagship restaurant in Soho where the fire pit and the grills that they cook on are all in the center of the restaurant. They do whole animal cooking, head to toe cooking, which I really love, and amazing vegetarian stuff as well, actually. And they do incredible things with veg on the grill. But yeah, really fantastic, very charismatic, very cool chef who is going to be doing all the food for the experience. So we're going to have this 1920s Manhattan feast, and then we're going to be having people come in 3 different tiers. So we've got like the artists and bohemians of Greenwich Village, we've got the classic flappers and also gangsters in our kind of mid tier, and then we've got for 16 people a night, we've got movie stars and tycoons. That's the most kind of elaborate audience experience we've ever done.
Wow.
It's all completely hush hush and top secret in terms of that, but it's literally, we can only manage 16 of them a night because it's such a detailed, individualized experience for each person. Like, each of those 16 people is going to get a tailored experience, unique to their single individual ticket. We're really excited about this one. Again, having like a sort of prohibition cocktail bar in there, all these amazing themes that we're going to bring out. So yeah, that's Lost Love Speakeasy. That's opening on 10th of May. It's also the first show we've not set an end date, so it's just going to run indefinitely, which is quite again, it's what we've we've always wanted to do. So that's quite a big step for us.
Cool. I'm just checking the website. I might actually come across it with my wife for this. Actually, looks really cool. I'm just checking out the website. It looks really, really good.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this one. I just think, like, again, we've bitten off some really massive stories with things like Swan Lake and what have you. And actually, I mean, this has got a really, really beautiful story at its heart. But I just really want to get stuck into something that's going to be so vibey and so fun as a sort of 20s Manhattan speakeasy. So we've got that, and then we just this second launched something called Inside the Estate. So Inside the Estate, again, that's insidetheestate.com, is our agency product that we've got. We've had so many people get in touch with us, brands that are looking for activations and launches for products and stuff like that, and for experiential events around their products, and also people that are in the events industry that want to know how, want to like take forward their digital marketing and their online brand building, this side of things, like that kind of whole just digital strategy area, which is obviously how we've grown the company exclusively online, exclusively digitally, gone from 0 to 7-figure turnover in 12 months with no external investment or anything. So just completely bootstrapped an events company to 7 figures, just using digital platforms, social media platforms. And I think that's something that a lot of people have wanted to find out more about how we do that, and have wanted our help constructing their own strategies for digital and online. And yeah, now we have the structure with which to do that. So again, anyone that's interested in that side of the thing and interested in working with us and learning how we build these kind of viral sellout events, we've got insidetheestate.com as well.
Cool. I'll drop a link in the show notes. I'm really curious, like the last time we spoke before the Great Christmas Feast, you've been doing, your primary online promotion was Facebook. You were doing Facebook ads and Facebook marketing. Was that the same for the Great Christmas Feast? Was that still like the number one sort of source of sales for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
Facebook and Instagram are principal sources. So if people want some like little tactical things that I've learned through that campaign, I always found Instagram to slightly less well than Facebook, I guess because it's more of a kind of platform of looking and less of a platform of clicking through and doing, which I think Facebook is. Facebook, you're looking for interesting things to click through to.
Exactly.
So serving an ad to someone on Facebook just makes total sense if it's an interesting ad to be serving them. Instagram, I found less so because I just think there's more friction there. But something that really, really worked for us is Facebook. It's not that new, but Facebook introduced, I think last year, maybe the year before, I don't know. This is my first time using it. They launched this thing called lead ads, which is where a native form pops up inside Instagram and you just fill out your details. So whatever details you as an event organizer want to collect from them, like, I mean, principally their email, I'm guessing, can also collect their phone number if that's appropriate for you.
Yep.
But actually using lead ads inside Instagram, I think because it just massively reduces the friction, because you don't feel like you're leaving Instagram. It's just this little pop-up. I think I'm right in saying it even self-populates. So, it self-populates with the details that you have with Instagram, like your email address in Instagram. Very smooth process. You click submit because you saw this video or whatever for this super cool event on Instagram. You just have to click through this form, put in your email, and then that person's in your funnel and you haven't had to disrupt their Instagram experience, which I think everyone wins at that point. So a big discovery for me has been in Instagram lead ads. I think anyone that's using social should definitely check that out. Another thing that I found is interesting, I think this is quite relevant for event organizers in terms of social advertising, right? Because we're tied to a location.
Yeah.
And I suppose for the majority of us, the audience that's going to be traveling to us from overseas or whatever. I mean, I know in the US, there's more of a culture, I think, of like getting on planes and going massive distances just because it's such a huge country. But I think for the majority of us, the idea of people coming from very far away on airplanes to our events is going to be a really small proportion of people. So we are kind of really focused on quite a geographically limited area of people that are within striking distance of our event, right? That's like one of our challenges, is the geography of it.
Yep.
And so what I found is I've found that, and I don't know what your experience of this is, Dan, but like what I found with Facebook marketing is the standard scaling practice of, you know, finding an ad set, making an ad set that is converting at a cost you like, and then just increasing and increasing and increasing the budgets bit by bit by bit every day, or every 2 days, or every 3 days. The sort of standard best practice for scaling a Facebook ad hasn't worked that well for me, as in it's driven up the cost per conversion quite rapidly.
Yep.
And what I have found instead, and I'm slightly hypothesizing, I don't know if this is a thing, but I think for me it's because we're working with geographically limited audiences, that what I found has really been a game changer for me is creating, instead of scaling a single audience and a single target, a single sort of targeted audience, has actually been the creation of like tons and tons of micro audiences. So again, rather than trying to like absolutely max out people that are interested in events in London, I mean, there's ways you can target people that are interested in going out on events in London, has to be to create like all these little different audiences. So people that are interested in immersive events in London, people that are interested in kind of cosplay and dressing up and that kind of thing, which is quite a big part of what we do. People that are interested in fine dining experiences, people that love cool cocktail bars. And actually, instead of having, say, 2 or 3 ad sets that we're trying to like increase the budget of bit by bit by bit, we actually instead just keep trying to create loads of small audiences with small budgets and kind of grow our budget that way, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's really interesting. Carry on, Will.
Yeah, that's proven just way better for me, because I think then that means that because you've got that small budget, Facebook just keeps sending it to the creme de la creme of that audience, rather than, because it's probably quite a small audience, because you've probably set the geographic targeting to just the city that you're in. When you up the budget, I think you're forcing Facebook to send it to send ad to parts of that audience that aren't ideal. Whereas if you just create all these tiny audiences and small budgets, always small budgets, you're keeping Facebook serving that ad to the creme de la creme of that particular audience. And then another thing that we started doing on top of that is creating unique, I think you could do this lots of different ways, but you could do it with UTMs, urchin tracking, is it modules, UTMs? Or also another thing I do is, well, I do it now with creating a unique landing page for each of those tiny audiences, because then what you can start to do is you can start to build lookalike audiences. Like I've always had loads of joy with Facebook's lookalike audience technology. That's always, like, lookalike audiences off of successful ads have always also been successful for me. So then by kind of streamlining all these different, so what I used to do before is we used to be driving everyone towards a particular landing page. So then if we said, okay, Facebook, a lookalike audience of everyone visiting that landing page, we've got this mishmash of people that are interested in cosplay and people that are interested in cocktail bars and all this stuff. Whereas now we're splitting people out to individual landing pages, like with unique URLs, so that we can then build these sort of really targeted, well, what we hope are going to be really specific lookalike audiences. So a lookalike audience of people that are interested in cocktail bars, a lookalike audience just of people that are interested in cosplay and Comic-Con and dressing up and that kind of thing, and so on and so forth. So we actually, again, as well as just keeping these audiences small, we actually like really squeeze the most out of our city. Because I always think to myself, like, what proportion of people that, let's say, love dressing up have written on their Facebook profile, I love dressing up? Like it's definitely not going to be all the people in that category, is it? So therefore creating these landing pages that you can then use to generate really specific lookalike audiences out of has also massively increased the amount of scale that we can build into campaigns.
I'm curious, are you using one of these things like lead pages, these like landing page generators, or have you just got a web designer who's just making manually a new page every time you think of a new lookalike?
Yeah, so I use Divi. So I use WordPress, and then on WordPress I use Divi. So
how do you spell that? So was that Divi or Dizzy? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Divi, Divi.
Divi on WordPress. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so that's a theme on WordPress. So the con of Divi is that it's slow to load.
Right.
But the pro, because it's got loads of back-end features to make it really easy, because of basically all the pros that it has, make it quite slow to load. So you have to kind of work quite hard on that side of it. But the pros of it are, number one, that you can combine the best of everything. So it does have a visual editor, totally visual editor. I have to say I don't use that much, but it has a kind of drag and drop editor,
right,
and also the code editor. So myself and Rowan, that are like okay in HTML and CSS and all this stuff, actually I think we can generate pretty advanced looking designs and pages using our okay HTML CSS knowledge plus the drag and drop builder elements that maybe do some of the things that would have been too hard for us to just build ourselves. So we can build pretty amazing looking pages. And then actually has two really powerful features, which is first of all that you can just clone pages very quickly. It has this thing called the Divi library, which allows you to save features of a particular page into this library, and then you can just load them up on new pages. So you can clone a page very rapidly, and then let's say you can then just tweak that landing page so that you emphasize whatever the elements are for the audience that's getting driven to that page. It's a great product, I think.
That's great. I mean, that's good. Really good chat in terms of some really concrete tips about Facebook ads and Divi. I'm going to check it out. I'm looking at it right now, and it looks really interesting. I'm looking at moving our sites to WordPress generally, and I'm just looking for a convenient way to manage things, and this could be the solution.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like I said, I still, because I think that we've still got online sort of marketing structure. I think we've still got a lot of things to work on before we ever get there. But I'd be interested to see to what extent you can fix the slow loading times. They're not horrendous. It's not like ridiculous, but they're definitely not that kind of totally instant loads that you would love to see from your web pages. I haven't really looked into that side of things yet because there's still so many things we're refining. But I mean, in terms of that, the only other thing that we are, I can't tell if this is going to work, but two things that we are looking to do a lot more of is so expanding off Facebook and Instagram, going to YouTube pre-roll, which I never quite believed in that much, because at least my experience has always been that I find the YouTube pre-roll very annoying. But actually, if you take a look online at like Google's documentation for the ad product, you can use Google search to serve pre-roll YouTube videos. So let's say someone looks up 1920s experiences in London on Google, which actually is a really popular thing. People love speakeasies, people love 1920s experiences at the moment.
Yep.
I can then serve a really highly targeted, almost literally to the point of you have a voice come in saying, are you looking for a 1920s experience in London? You know, this kind of thing. Like, you can serve them essentially the answer to their search query the next time they go to look at like whatever they want on YouTube, like sports highlights or whatever. So they can then be on YouTube looking at something totally random, and they'll actually get the answer to that search query served to them as a pre-roll video. So that's something I'm looking at. I haven't, like I said, I don't know if it's going to work, but my logic tells me that could be really, really effective. And then similarly on Facebook, another thing we're looking at doing is building in like two-layered ads. So, for example, going back to that comment I was saying earlier of I'm sure lots of people in London that would love our experiences just haven't written into their profile the appropriate kind of likes and follows and whatever to become part of the audiences that we target, which is doing things like running a really broad advert, almost to sort of people in the appropriate age range in London, a video all about what the Lost Estate does. So like a video about all the experiences that we make and the kind of work that we do and the kind of nights out we create for people, and then serving people based off of that a targeted video say people that watch 75% of that video, then sending those people a video that says, secret sale now on for the Lost Love Speakeasy. So kind of almost manually taking a broad audience down to a refined audience is also something that I'm going to be experimenting on with over the next month or two. I'd love to hear from anyone that's done that stuff and has had results, but those are the kind of two, in particular, the two kind of new strategies that I'm looking to add to my toolkit to see if they work. So I'll be really interested to hear what other people's experiences are.
Yeah, if anyone has any feedback for Will, just get in touch. All the contact details are on the podcast show notes. But that's interesting. I'm furiously taking notes here. It'd be great to check in after you've done the next event and see how this goes, because it's especially the YouTube stuff is very, very interesting to me.
Yeah, totally. And I'm just like, my goal with this event is that, like, I want it to still be running in 2020. That's like my big goal. That, you know, I mean, obviously maybe it has a week off because the performers need a holiday and things like this, but in the broadest possible sense, it like hasn't had a week off between when it launches on May the 10th and the 1st January 2020. So I'm really looking to, like, because Facebook is brilliant, and I think Facebook will always be our core paid advertising channel. But I think to get the volume that we're talking about out there, and to get the reach that we're talking about there, we need to start our next stage is to have a broader platform away from just Facebook and Instagram.
Great. Well, look, that was really, really great chat. Just to finish, Will, you sort of did a bit of a teaser earlier that you were looking at some Asian and US cities. Do you have any plans like this year, you think, to expand into those markets?
Yeah, we'd absolutely love to look at the US for Christmas 2020. Sorry, 2019. Christmas 2019. At least either one US city. So we are looking at definitely within the next season. So within the 1920 season that we're currently just about to start, the 1920 season. Sorry, that's the 2019 to 2020 season that we're just about to start. That we are going to have a show in the Far East and a show in the US. We are starting to get down to the nitty-gritty on both of those ends. I mean, there's nothing that I could say specifically right now just because of where those discussions are at. But yeah, absolutely. With an ideal goal being that the first international site will be launching Christmas 2019 with the Great Christmas Feast.
That's great. Just thinking about Asia, kind of a side point, but I don't know if you've been to Bangkok, but there's a guy there. I think he's Ashley Sutton is his name, an English guy. I think he's English, but he's made a few bars there, which are these kind of like, they're just bars. It's not like an experience, but it is like an experience. There's one called Maggies, which is kind of like you go in through like a noodle shop, and it's like a speakeasy of like an old Asian, I guess a Shanghai style one. It's really quite cool. And there's another one called Iron Fairies, which is it's almost like something from Diagon Alley in Harry Potter, like with like was weird, like kind of steampunk. Just check it out online, but if you're ever in Bangkok, you should check out his bars. I think you'd probably really like them.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Sounds super cool.
Cool.
I love the idea of a sort of Asian style speakeasy.
Yeah, it is. It's weird. My friend just randomly took me there because I was staying really close. It's near Chinatown in Bangkok. Really, really worth checking out if you're over there.
Yeah, amazing.
Cool. Well, look, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure as always, and I look forward to catching up in a few months and seeing how the next event went.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm looking forward to round 3.
Cheers, man.
Do you want to sell more tickets to your amazing events? EventsFrame event ticketing has been built to minimize the amount of time it takes to buy a ticket. Result? You sell more tickets. Check out eventsframe.com.